Morning, this is Faith at Faith and Books. I have two things to update you on, or one thing to update you on, and then another thing that's just a bizarre thing that happened. But my chickens started laying, which is crazy because I looked it up, and these Buff Orpingtons aren't supposed to start laying till 24 weeks, and they have 3 more weeks to go. But just yesterday, they laid 2 eggs. One of them, I don't know which chicken. I came out in the afternoon, and there was an egg sitting by their water container, or whatever, the water, and which is not in the nesting box. And I thought they had taken one of the fake ceramic eggs and rolled it out or something. But no, it was an egg, but it had a little crack in it. So I took it. It wasn't leaking anything. So I took it and I put it in the nesting box. And then I went out a couple hours later and I found this one. So, but it's super small. So like this is a regular egg that I buy my eggs once a month from a farm. So this is a regular farm egg, and then this, you can see how little this egg is. So I don't know, are these just like, starter eggs when they're just starting to lay? I don't know, I'm looking forward to cracking it and seeing what it's like inside. But anyway, so that's exciting, and it was unexpected. I had in my head thought September, and then I sort of thought, I started to think beginning of September, but I actually looked it up, and it's the middle of September that they're technically supposed to be starting to lay eggs. So I don't know, were they older when we got them? I don't know. Anyway, so that's kind of exciting because I kept telling everybody, as long as we start getting eggs, and then, if they come in and say you have to get rid of your chickens, I'll at least have had that experience of having chickens and gotten my own eggs. And so now it looks like it's happening. So that's pretty exciting. The other weird thing I wanted to talk about was we had the weirdest thing happen. Our boarder, the mother of the little boy that I watch, she went over to my oldest daughter's house and her husband's house just one Saturday, just because we've been quarantining together. And she just went over to get out of the house and have a little bit of social time. And so she went to the store and she bought 3 bottles of wine, and she put 2 in the car, and she went and brought a bottle of wine over to my daughter's house. Well, and then she kind of forgot that she'd gotten those other 2 bottles of wine. And so that was on Saturday evening. So on Wednesday, she went out to clean her car, and she found the 2 bottles of wine, but one was empty, and the other one was partially drunk with the cork stuck back in it. So we cannot figure out who did this. Nobody in this house, nobody in this house would do that kind of thing. And we're just trying to figure out how it could happen. And when she goes to work, she always locks her car. The only 2 times we can think of that someone might have done it is Sunday night, because she wasn't working, so she was parked here, and maybe she forgot to lock the car, because around here there's no crime around us. I mean, it's very rare. So sometimes people get sloppy about locking cars. I tend to always lock my car, but other people in this family are not so conscientious about it. But or maybe it happened when she was in my daughter's house. To me, that seems more likely, because our house is set back. We don't have people wandering around. But where my daughter lives, it's in a townhouse community, and there's a lot more people walking around. So I can imagine maybe younger people walking around, maybe they spied the bottles and she hadn't. I don't know. It's the weirdest thing we're trying to figure out. It creeped me out, because I thought, are people outside my house at night, going through the cars? The weird thing is they didn't steal anything else. So, I mean, they could have stolen other stuff that was in the car, and they didn't. So it was a very, very strange incident. Anyway, so that's enough talking on my part. I'm going to do Brush Up Your Shakespeare, because that's what this is all about. And I'm just going to do 5 this morning. And I'm into the E's now. And I don't think I did this one last time. It's Every Inch a King. And this is from King Lear, which I have not read. This is a very short exchange here from the play. It's Gloucester is the character speaking. The trick of that voice I do well remember. Is it not the king? And then Lear says, aye, every inch a king. So I do not use this phrase, and I don't think I've ever really heard anybody use it in conversation. But this guy says every inch a king is ironically taken at face value nowadays, without the bitter incongruity of the original context. So now, I guess if somebody, is at the top of their game or has just been successful or something, do you say every inch a king? Is that how we use the expression? I don't know how we use it. But he's saying that's not really what it means, because in the play, Lear has gone mad and he's like this crazy person and he's hit rock bottom. And so to say, every inch a king when he's in this terrible state is an ironic thing. So I don't know. I really want to read King Lear. I'm really interested in reading it. I got to get to that. The next phrase I'm going to skip. It's the expense of spirit in a waste of shame. It's from Sonnet 129. I don't know Shakespeare sonnet. And to tell you the truth, this guy's explanation is one of the reasons why I kind of steer clear of the sonnets, because apparently this is some sort of naughty sexual reference. And that's what I always seem to hear about his sonnets. And I'm just not interested. So, so I'm skipping that one. Sorry, guys, I'm not sophisticated enough to appreciate Shakespeare sonnets, I guess. Anyway, the next phrase is fair play, which I just think of as sort of a stock phrase. I mean, just does somebody have to make that up? But it's first cited in King John, the play King John, another one I'm not familiar with. And it says here that the phrase foul play had been around since the 15th century. And so Shakespeare came up with its opposite, fair play. Anyways, this is from King John, and the character is named Bastard. So it says, Bastard, oh, Inglorious League. Now, isn't there a movie or something called Inglorious Bastards? Was that Shakespeare reference? I'm not familiar with that. I just heard the phrase. Anyway, Bastard, oh, inglorious lead, shall we upon the footing of our land send fair play orders and make compromise, insinuation, parley, and base truce to arms invasive? So that was from Act 5, Scene 1. And then this is from Act 5, Scene 2. Bastard, according to the fair play of the world, let me have audience. So this guy says that Shakespeare's made up this phrase, it seems like, and he's actually using him in two different ways. In the first scene, he's being, sarcastic about it. He's saying, these people are invading and you want me to play fair. But in the second one, he's saying, you should let me have audience, because that's the way, that would be a fair way of dealing with things. So he's using it twice. But, so it comes up twice in the play, but he uses it in slightly different ways. So, and I do say the phrase fair play. And then this one I found really interesting. A Feast of Languages is the phrase. And it's from Love's Labour's Lost, which I really want to learn more about Shakespeare's comedies, because I really don't know very much. So this is a very confusing exchange here from the play. So the character Armado to Moth, another character, Chira, Holofernes, Holoffernes, Holofernes, Quare Chira, not Sira, Armado, men of peace well encountered, Holofernes, most military sir, salutation, Moth, aside to Costard. They have been at a great feast of languages and stolen the scraps. Costard. Oh, they have lived long on the alms basket of words. I love that last part, the feast of languages and stolen the scraps. they have lived long on the alms basket of words. But I don't think the author here gives a very good explanation. He just sort of goes through and says the obvious. And so he explains that these guys, what they do to make themselves feel important is they just grab little bits of language, like quare is Latin. And then they're just sort of using archaic phrases and little snippets of language. And it doesn't really make sense, but they're trying to make themselves sound more educated. And Moth and Costard are saying, you know, they're like picking up the stuff, but it's they're trying to live off of these words, you know, that they don't really know what they're saying. But what I thought was most interesting about this is that if you know about Shakespeare, he made up a lot of words. And at the time, there was a great vowel shift, and English was really in a state of flux. It was really fluid and malleable, and you could make up words and get really creative with it at the time, which Shakespeare seems to have taken full advantage of. And so, to me, as Shakespeare playing around like that, almost like poking fun at what was going on in the language at the time, or even himself, that to me seems like a more interesting angle on that. Anyway, so a feast of languages, I never used that phrase, and I had never heard of it before. And then the last one I'll do is flaming youth. The phrase flaming youth, which again I do not use, it's from Hamlet. Hamlet. O shame, where is thy blush, rebellious hell, if thou canst mutine in a matron's bones? To flaming youth let virtue be as wax, and melt in her own fire. So again, the author gives a weird kind of explanation that I didn't quite find satisfactory, but knowing Hamlet, it's when, this is from the scene where Hamlet is having it out with his mother because she married his uncle, who Hamlet is convinced killed his father. And so he's had all this pent up anger at her for what she's done, and he's saying to her, how shameful she is that she let her lust for the uncle, which is, I guess, the flaming youth. Let virtue be as wax and melt in her own fire, saying that your own lust or your own passion for this guy is going to ruin you, basically, that it's ruining you. Again, I never use that phrase, flaming youth. And I'm just going to stop there. I'm just going to do 5 this morning. So anyway, 13 minutes. So I'm going to say goodbye, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.